Welcome to Thriver Talks with Stephanie and Nalie. I'm Nalie, and I will be your host for today's Thriver Talks interview. Thriver Talks' mission is also to share miracle stories from thrivers you may not have heard of, but whose stories deserve to be told. And today I am so excited to be speaking with, for the first time ever, Erin Lyn Riplinger, also known as Ripsy on Instagram. She's a stage 4, 20-year breast cancer survivor from Utah. She's a Zumba instructor, a flight attendant, a mother, and an overall walking miracle. Steph and I have been wanting to hear her story and speak with her for so long, so I'm really honored to have Erin here on Thriver Talks. So without further ado, here is episode 16. Erin,
hi.
How are you?
So good. I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you so much for joining me last minute on here.
Oh, you're welcome.
What time is it in Utah?
It's 1 p.m.
Okay, not bad. It is like 3-ish here
Eastern
in Montreal.
Time. Nice.
Yeah, this is amazing that we can like connect from like Utah to Montreal, because as we were saying, I find like it's so hard to find other, especially stage 4 breast cancer thrivers who have defied the odds, who are doing so well. And just looking at you right now, you're so beautiful and you're so healthy. And I love watching your Zumba videos online. But Erin, I have to take it back to, oh my gosh, 1999?
Yeah.
Can
Crazy.
You please tell us
it started in 98, fall of 98.
When I was 10 years old.
That's crazy. Here, baby. Just make me feel older.
No, that's a blessing. That's truly
a blessing.
Absolutely.
People don't get that. I'm always like, I'm having a birthday. It's huge. And they're
huge.
Like, birthday.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Huge.
Okay, so 1998.
98. I had found a lump. And I was concerned about it. You kind of get that immediate knee jerk, something's not right. But right. I mean, I was actually 23 at the time.
Okay.
And so I went to my doctor and I said, I'm very concerned. It doesn't run in my family at all. I have 5 older sisters, like considerably older than I am. No cancer. My grandma's none. But I just had a feeling. My daughter was 18 months old. She was just a little baby, pretty much. Yeah. And newlyweds, I've been married just over 3 years, and I went to the doctor. They did a checkup and they're like, you're so young, the typical young cancer story, it's, I think a water cyst, or you kind of have fibrous breasts.
Yes.
So they said, we really don't think it's that. And so I walked away from it and just tried to put it out of my mind. But obviously, once you find it, it's there, you feel it, you check it, you're concerned. And I remember I went to the store after and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's not anything. All right. And I still could not shake it. And so I went in one more time and I saw our other doctor, and she was like, no, I think the same thing. You're totally fine, And so we were trying to have our kids like 2 years apart. And so we're like, hey, life's good. We'll just go ahead with life. And we went ahead and we're trying to have another baby, and it was through the holidays. And I got very concerned in January again. That was like, I would say September. And then in January again, I got very concerned about it. So I actually scheduled my own mammogram at the hospital.
Was it because at this point your lumps were growing, or?
Yeah. And they were like, I know they say they're not painful or whatever, but I felt like it was like, if you laid wrong. Yeah. And so I scheduled my mammogram. I went and they called me up to the desk and they're like, where's your referral? And this is 20 years ago. And, same story we hear all the time. And I'm like, I don't have it. You've got to go back to your doctor. Your insurance will cover it. So I went back again and I said, you know what? Something is not right. And my doctor finally was like, okay, fine. And so they ran a mammogram. By this point, it was actually February. They ran a mammogram, and from there it was just like boom, all heck. It's just the minute that day they're like, oh my gosh, okay, you got to go to your doctor, and they do a biopsy and need a
Yeah.
biopsy and everything, and your world crashes around you. And so at that point they're like, okay, we've got to get you in. This is major cancer. I had two lumps, and it had actually traveled to my neck, and
Oh,
I had
whoa.
under my arm too. Yeah. And so that time frame, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 days or whatever till I got in, but gosh, you can't eat, you can't sleep. And I remember everybody saying, I'm so sorry. And you finally have to just kind of dig in and be like, don't be sorry.
Yep.
You got to deal with it or whatever. So the doctors said to me, sorry, I didn't
That's all
turn my
right.
phone on airplane mode. The doctors had said to me, okay, we can do two types of reconstruction. Because back then they didn't treat, they went straight to mastectomy,
It's crazy
which is
how like
crazy.
things must be so different 20 years ago, which is
So
why I was so
different.
fascinated and excited to
Yeah.
speak with you.
Yeah. And I have so many like breast cancer survivors find me, and they'll be like, hey, like, how was your treatment? What did you do? This and that. And it's so different now.
Of
I
course.
almost, it's like foreign language to hear what they go through now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, you can do an implant, we'll do the mastectomy, or you can do the tram flap. I had just barely enough left over from having my daughter in my stomach. And they're like, we
Right.
could do that. But they're like, I said, well, how often do you have to change your implant? And they said every 10 years. And I go, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to change my implant. I said, I want to do the other surgery. I know it's like more drastic, but it's my own tissue. And they
Yeah.
said, well, why would you go through all of that? You're only going to live about 3 years.
So wait,
Yeah.
you were diagnosed with stage 4
Stage
right
4.
off the bat because it
Yeah.
had spread to the neck.
To my neck.
At that,
Yeah.
did it spread anywhere else after that?
Not that they knew of. Like we, ran all the scans and did
Right.
everything, and they all came back clear at that point. So I
Okay.
went ahead with the major reconstructive surgery. It was like a 7.5 hour surgery. I did the tram flap with my stomach. But before I had started the surgery, I said to the doctors, I may be pregnant. And because they told us we were fine, right?
Yeah.
And so they ran a pregnancy test and it came back negative. And so I was like, okay, well, we're okay. So I did that with my stomach and did the whole, reconstructive there. And that is such a hard surgery to come back from. I had to sleep sitting up. I was so tight. And it just, with the way they skin graft, you have to keep your room really warm.
Right.
And it's a miserable comeback. But hindsight now, oh, I'm so grateful I did it that way.
Of
It's
course.
like, it's amazing. I'll have people see it nowadays and they'll be like, oh my gosh, like you can't even tell. Like you had such an amazing surgeon. And I really did, for 20 years ago, especially,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
they
Because
did
20
it.
years ago, women were like butchered when it came to
Yeah,
mastectomies.
it's crazy. Yeah. And most people can't even tell when I wear, a swimsuit or whatever. But so I did that. And then I started my chemos. Our plan was to do 6 doses. And I have the HER2 gene.
Okay.
So the ironic thing that happened with that is when I first found my cancer in August,
Yeah.
they came out and approved Herceptin in November of that year.
Oh my gosh.
So if I had been diagnosed in August, I
You wouldn't
wouldn't
have
have
had.
Herceptin. And I know I would not be here today if it weren't for that. I know I would not be.
Right.
So they left the lymph node in my neck. I started my treatments. And I was terrified leaving that in there. Oh, and when they took out my lymph nodes, they didn't do the sentinel node then. Like it
Okay.
was pretty major, the grouping they take out from
Yeah.
under your arm. I had 14 out of I think 22 nodes that had cancer in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it
So
had
it's
spread.
major. It spread big time. So then I started my chemos and I had the Herceptin. I did Taxol
Yeah.
with it. And I remember I was about at my 4th dose, and this had gone away in like 2 doses.
Oh,
So
good.
it's like, oh, it's working. So it was
Uh-huh.
a blessing to leave it, but it was like terrifying.
Of course.
I remember saying to my doctors, I'm gaining lots of weight. And they're like, you're on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear all this,
Same.
right?
Oh yeah.
And
I
I'm not
experienced
having
that.
my period. You may never have your period again. So I'm like, okay. And I was really tight from my tummy tuck. And so at my 5th dose, my nephew that's a year younger than me was getting married in California. And I begged my doctor, I'm like, can I go to his wedding? He's like a brother to me. And she's like, okay, you can go. So I flew to California, and over that weekend, I just kept having weird feelings. I'm like, gosh, it's almost like I either have cancer, uterine cancer, or I'm pregnant. Like, it's weird. I'd push on my stomach and it would feel like a baby pushing back. And I'm like, oh
Wow.
my gosh, what is going on? So I got home. I ran and got a pregnancy test on a Sunday night. It came back positive, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like this can't be from now, it has to be from before. So I went to my doctor on that next Monday, the next day, to do my last dose of chemo. And she's like, let's get you done. And I'm like, wait.
I'm
I
pregnant.
said, we're pregnant. And she's like, why would you guys do that? And we're like, no, it's not that. Like, we weren't dumb. And so I had literally, I had barely been pregnant when I did my tram flap surgery and that major surgery. Like, I had to have been barely like a few weeks along because my pregnancy came back. My pregnancy came back negative. Yeah. And later I asked the hospital for it. They could never find it. So I don't know about that. But anyway, so they sent me straight to a specialist. They ran an ultrasound, and the doctor's like, oh my gosh. He's like, you're 24 weeks along. I was 6 months pregnant. I had done my surgery, chemo, everything.
While you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then he's like, we can't even tell what the baby is. You have no amniotic fluid. We don't know why there's no amniotic fluid. The baby has no kidneys that we can see, no bladder. He's like, you've still got to fight to live for your 18-month-old daughter, and you've got to do radiation. He's like, we probably ought to consider something different, like abortion or whatever.
Oh my
God. You know? Yeah. And my husband and I both were like, we can't even fathom this. Like, we can't even go here. And I remember just saying, can we just have a minute? And they left the room, and I just collapsed. I mean, I'm 23 years old. I'm wanting to have my little family and my perfect little dream. And here I am facing stage 4 cancer, and now a baby that's not going to survive on top of that. And that was a dream for me. All my friends are having babies.
Of course.
And I'm facing cancer and not knowing if I'm going to live for my baby girl, you know?
And so the doctor suggested to terminate the baby. And what happened?
So we said we can't do that. I mean, it wasn't in our hands to have the baby make it that long. And the way the timing all worked, it was just crazy that the pregnancy even made it, right?
Right.
So they said, okay, fine, we'll shield you. We'll do your radiation. We won't have you do your last dose of chemo. So I didn't do my last. I did 5 doses on stage 4 cancer. Like,
yeah, unheard of.
And I stopped my Herceptin then too. So I had done only my 5 doses and then my Herceptin during that time. And so I did the radiation, and I remember I drive in every single day, and it's a very lonely, you know,
experience.
Radiation.
Oh, yeah. It's not like chemo where you could have family members surrounding you.
Yeah. It's very sterile, very sterile. But for me, it was such a blessing. It was kind of a quiet time that I would just talk to the baby, and I'd be like, hey, we're going to make this. And you've been with me through this whole thing. So literally, like, the doctors had told me, you're week 24. If you do not have amniotic fluid by week 28, I guess the baby swallows the amniotic fluid. It develops their lungs. If you don't have it by then, there's no way the baby will survive. And we don't even know, you know, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
So I'd go in every week for a non-stress test on the baby. And every week I'd be like, oh, please, like, there's got to be a change. I had some feelings that I thought possibly a miracle could happen, but you know, I'd go in, no change. They'd run the ultrasound, no change. At week 28, I just remember just praying, like, I have faith this is going to work. Like, let's make it happen, you know? And they ran the ultrasound, and the doctor and the tech stop, and they look at each other, and they're like, do you see that? And I'm like, oh no, now what? Like, it's always bad.
Yeah.
Bad. And they're like, no. We don't believe this. You have normal fluid. Your baby has kidneys, bladder. It's a little boy. God. Yeah. And I was like, oh. But then they're like, we don't know if he got it in time. We think he'll probably live a half hour. And they're like, he probably will have joint contractures, like tight, because I was so small, so tight from my surgery and no fluid. And so I'm like, I'll take a half hour. If I can hold my baby and hear my baby cry for a half hour, I'll take it, you know? And I was dealing with an 18-month-old at home too. Like, Oh, it was terrible. And it's hard because I haven't shared it a lot. I kind of just walked into like my kiddos in
I
life
know.
and not focused on it. And it's nice to kind of share it. But
Yeah, thank you for sharing it.
yeah, so I would go like every week and have those tests, and I finished my radiation out. And I actually went into labor 6 weeks early and they couldn't stop it. And so the doctors are like, "Oh my gosh." And so I delivered my baby in the NICU, like where they rush into the NICU, the emergency delivery room.
Yeah.
And he actually came out absolutely perfect. He
Oh
was
my
screaming
gosh,
and
I'm gonna
crying.
cry.
Yeah. And I lost it. The doctor turned to us and he says,
It's a miracle.
Jesus, I don't believe this. He goes, "You guys got the miracle you prayed for."
Absolutely. Because
Hmm.
fast forward today, it's
Yeah.
it's Josh, right?
Yeah. My son, he's 20.
20
He is,
years
yeah.
old.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is his birthday's in October. Like, so it's like the most
Wow.
perfect, like, breast cancer month gift for me ever.
Hell yeah. And what way
So,
to give
yeah.
hope to other survivors
Yeah.
and
It's
thrivers
amazing.
every
Yeah. And
October.
he's perfect, 4-year-old
Yeah.
student. He
He
went
has
to
no
Brazil.
complications at all.
Nothing. He is handsome, beautiful boy. He went to Brazil for 2 years, and all the
Yeah.
Brazilians down there were like, "Oh,
Ooh
he's
la
Captain America!"
la.
Like all American boy,
He
and just such a
is.
blessing. So I mean, literally, like hindsight, it's crazy to look back because all the pieces fit just right. The chemo was suppressing the amniotic fluid, so I
Right.
got off the chemo by going to that wedding. Perfect
Oh
time.
my
Like it's like the
gosh.
perfect little puzzle with the Herceptin and timing, and we're both here 20 almost 21 years later. Next month, or actually it's February.
Yes.
On the 21st it'll be my 21 diagnosis.
On the 21st will be your 21
Yeah.
years, 21,
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Synchronicity. And here we
Yeah.
are doing a last minute random interview because I
Yeah.
really wanted to talk to you. I
Yeah.
had
And
no
sorry that's so
idea.
long.
Not
Yeah.
at
It's
all. I like, girl, we could take all the time you need because your story is incredible. And I
there's
know,
so many
like,
pieces to
that's
it.
what I feel so honored because I know I noticed you're only starting to
Mhm.
share more and more of it now. So I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to
I
give you this platform to even share
I
it to
love it.
many
Thank
more
you.
people because
Thank you.
Steph and I always say how, for sure, there are so many other women out there. For one, they must be older than us because
Right.
perhaps it's more rare. Well, in fact, I'm happy you started off by saying how young you were because I was only 24, and they
Gosh, thank
also refused to give me a mammogram. It took forever for me to, get my biopsy and so on and so forth. We have very similar stories. So
very
I'm hoping
similar.
that because our demographic listening to Thriver Talks are much younger women, that, they really become their own advocates. And if they
Oh,
do
totally.
feel lumps, because this was 20 years ago, but for me, it was 6 years ago. So
Still
hopefully,
though. Yeah.
exactly, things need to
Nothing's
change.
changed. It's frustrating to me, and frustrating to me. And I hear it
Absolutely.
over and over and over and over.
Exactly. Like things need to change.
Mhm.
And but yeah, like as I was saying, it's very rare for people to share their stories because we know somewhere out there must be a woman who has defied the odds and who's young
Oh,
like us and who was diagnosed young like us and who is doing amazing today, and then poof, we find you on
I love it. Thank you.
Instagram. And
Yeah.
that's why I find like I always try to encourage women to share their stories because you have no idea who you're going to reach and who you're
Oh,
going to
it's so true.
inspire. And
It's so
honestly,
true.
like Erin, like we have been sharing your posts amongst each other, and like I think I can't remember who even shared it to Steph, who then shared it to me, and that's how we found you. But yeah, your story is miraculous, and I think the world deserves to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I've shared it off and on through the years. I've
Right,
done with my Zumba stuff, like the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure.
right,
I've done stuff like that and stuff on like Utah news level or whatever. But I've
right.
always had like an extreme frustration because I feel like when people do find me, they're like, ah, you're giving me hope.
As if
And
it's a
I
bad
didn't
thing.
have that. I didn't have that. Like social media, when I went through it, was not there.
Oh,
There's
yes,
not
it's
that
true again.
strength.
20 years ago, right?
There was nothing. I
It's
mean,
so
and nothing in
true.
my family. And so I see all these women, I see you guys doing all this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't have the means to do that.
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys for doing that too and finding us
Thank
survivors.
you.
I can say honestly, I haven't found a survivor my age 20 years later.
Well,
It's,
hopefully
they're
we'll
out
be
there. I'd
those
love to
ones.
connect. Yeah.
I do know a couple. We'll probably interview them too on Thrivers Talks. I know
I'd love
Anne
it.
Fonfa. She founded the Annie Appleseed
Oh, yeah.
Foundation. Yeah, she's 25 years and she's now 71, but she was diagnosed,
I heard
like,
about her. Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
she's really inspiring. All to say, they're definitely out there. It's just hard to get them to share their stories because, for one, Steph and I always say that, hey, like, if we're like in the clear, well, Steph's in the clear right now,
Yeah.
but I'd
Yeah.
love to just like, drop all this and live our lives. But I feel
It's
like
true.
there's a bigger purpose behind this, and that this
I
is
love that.
yeah, we really believe that. I just even finding you, and I just thinking about the many lives we're probably going to give hope to and save by hearing our stories, I think it's absolutely worth it. But
It is so worth it. I love it.
curious to know, are you okay? So what year were you then like cancer free?
So they like technically, you know how they have you do your checkups like so tightly. I was going in constantly for all my blood work and my scans and everything. It was like 3 months and then 6 months and then 1 year. And then it seemed like, it's so hard to look back exact, but I would say like at my 3 to 5 year-ish, they were like, okay, you really at this point, like with your HER2 gene and how aggressive it was and where it was, like, you really are no different than someone else on the street.
Wow.
Like, just do your checks yearly.
So like let's say
Probably
5 years.
I would say 5 year mark. Yeah. Then it was like, oh, okay. And I remember talking to one of my friends that has passed on, which is so sad, but she was like, you'll get to a point where you have days or weeks or whatever where you honestly like you don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's there. I see my scars when I shower or whatever, but honestly, like I don't look at it as like the bad scary thing I used to. Like life becomes that norm and you're able to like live through it.
That's really reassuring because when you're told you're incurable, often you think that this is something you're going to have to have on your mind 24/7. And
totally.
you're 20 years out. I'm 6 years out, but technically, like, since the recurrence and since a stage 4 diagnosis, it's been 3 years. And already after 3 years, like, I don't think about it as much
often, right?
but I do have a scan coming up on Friday, so it's like this is the week where I'm like, oh yeah. So that, I guess, perfect segue, because I wanted to ask you, it's like 20 years out, do you still do scans? Like, what do you still do treatment? What do you still do?
I have no treatment. Like I never went back on Herceptin. I only had the 5 doses of chemo. That's it. Other than that, I remember saying to my doctors, like, okay, what can I do to prevent this? And they're like, just live the most healthy life you can.
Okay.
And we all hear that and know that, and the thing I notice most with like breast cancer, brand new diagnosed moms and people that reach out to me, they're like, okay, my diet, like, what do you do for your diet? And that in the beginning for me was the same thing, but I think even more important is health here. Your spirit is so much stronger than your body. And I remember just being like, hey, I will not die from cancer. I would say that over and over to myself. I'm like, okay, spirit, will this body to push past that? And I don't know, I believe like that was the miracle right thing, the right food, the right whatever. So, and then obviously exercise. I mean, I got into Zumba and I'm helping women and men find health and happiness in an hour. Everyone can drop their worries and it's beautiful. And that's been a gift inside of it. So I would say just live healthy and then just be healthy in your mind, your spirit, your soul, and your body, as much as you can. So
I believe that 10,000%. The power
huge.
of the mind is the number one.
Huge.
You believe so too?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've said that for years. I'm like, your spirit, your mind is way stronger than your physical body. Will it?
So did you adhere to any other, like any diets, or did you maybe like start, well, just
You know,
healthy, right?
in the beginning, like I started where my sister was pretty holistic. So she came and
Yeah.
stayed with me and she was just like, hey, oh, get rid of all processed food and this and that. And I was pretty careful that way. No, not after that. I mean, I try to eat very limited carbs and sugar type of stuff. I
Yeah.
kind of go in and out of keto diet. That's kind of my thing
Yes.
right now. I'm kind of big on that. But more than anything is just being smart, being smart in what the choices you make and your health choices, your life choices. You know, I don't smoke, I don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that's bad, that's someone's choice, but I feel like that's helped me, you know. So
Exactly. I always say that it's not just about, fighting the cancer or healing the cancer. It's about, in the end, you don't want to die. So then
no,
here you are living, but when you live, it's like, how do you want to live? Do you want to live a healthy life? Do you want to live a sluggish life? So if
right.
you are diagnosed with cancer and your goal is to beat cancer, then ultimately you are going to
What
beat
can you do?
cancer, but then what are you going to do now?
What
And
do
to
you do? Yeah.
see you just I'm so
All
jealous
my
that
crazy
I'm way
Zumba
too
posts.
far from you to be, because I want to do your Zumba
No,
classes. They
I will
look
come do it.
amazing. Oh my
I
gosh.
would love, my dream has been to always like create maybe like a getaway for a retreat or
Oh
something where we can
yes.
do that, where I
Sign
can
me up.
share it. Yeah. The other thing that's really bothered me about my issues from 20 years ago or whatever, because of how they did take out my lymph nodes, I deal with
Hmm.
lymphedema in my
Yeah, I
arm.
was gonna ask you that because they removed all of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And mine flared up. Like they'll say some women's don't flare up ever or whatever. Mine flared up, I think, because I was always carrying, I had two babies. So I was carrying the weight of my babies on my arm. The
Ah.
doctors think that that kind of like flared that. But I can honestly say, like, I feel like mine has maintained really well, considering there's not like a lot of information out there. When it first happened, I
No.
remember saying to my oncologist, Kate, what's going on and what do I do with it? And they gave me a name of someone, and it was some mom and pop like medical supply people that came and brought me a pump.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
it's just frustrating. I know there's stuff out there, but I wish there was a lot
More.
more understanding
Absolutely.
of that, you know.
Well, do you
So I
find that
think
when you're
exercise has
diagnosed
helped
with a
that.
stage 4 diagnosis, like, don't you find sometimes they don't think that you might make it that far to
Right?
experience like
No,
the
it's so
lymphedema? So they're
true.
just like, oh, okay. And I
No big
experienced
deal.
that for like my fertility. That was the episode just
Oh,
before where, no one told me that I had the option to freeze my eggs prior to
uh,
chemotherapy because,
yeah.
here you are, a young girl walking
And not,
in, they're
yep.
diagnosed with stage 4. So then they're like, well, you're
Why
not
would you
gonna,
think that
yeah.
way?
Why would you think about having a
Yeah.
family in the
Oh, and
future?
it's such a blessing. I actually, you bringing that up, I
Hmm.
actually met Felicia in California.
Okay.
Her and I met through Instagram, and she's amazing. She was a model and gorgeous. She's from Utah,
Okay.
and we actually lined up. She was here during the holidays, so we lined up together. And I hadn't even thought of the whole fertility thing, and that's one of her biggest things where she was like, I want to be a mom. Like, so
Yeah.
she actually did. She did actually harvest eggs and freeze. I
Amazing.
was like, oh, I didn't even think of that 20
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, I
Hmm.
was blessed with my two kids, but there's all these women that don't even have that option. And I
Exactly.
probably would never have had kids if it hadn't timing wise worked the way it did for me. So yeah, true.
So
So
aside from your lymphedema, do you experience any other side effects
the
due
only
to your
thing I deal
diagnosis?
with is from my radiation. I have a lot of pain in my muscle here where it's like an overburn, like,
Yeah.
almost like when you thaw a hamburger, frozen hamburger in the microwave.
Okay.
It's like the edges. And so I
Right.
try to get massages. And the other issue I have, which is probably not the smartest job, but I'm a flight attendant. And so with you got to have travel benefits, right? With the
Yes,
pressures,
please.
with the pressures from moving the carts and all of that, and then the jump seats and
Yeah.
that
And the
kind of stuff, like
swelling even being up in the
the up
air,
and
right?
down,
Mm-hmm.
the up and down. And they say it's like this glamorous job. Well, I hide my compression sleeve under my Delta uniform. But I love being able to do that, and I've
Yeah, of
met some amazing
course.
survivors on the plane talking randomly. They'll see my, the edge of my
Yeah, and they'll
sleeve
be like,
popping
wait a
out.
minute.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I've had overburn from here. I'll have my neck will hurt sometimes, but ironically, like as far as like health or, anything here, had no issues. My thyroid went out.
Mm,
It was from the radiation, and we actually lost a baby because of it.
real
We
after.
Yeah. Yeah,
So sorry.
I've been clean and clear for like, I think Josh was like 12 years old.
Okay.
And so we were like, life is normal. Maybe we ought to have one more, because I always wanted 3 kids.
Right.
And so we did get pregnant, and I actually made it to 18 weeks, and they couldn't figure out, like, all of a sudden the baby, there was no heartbeat. And what had happened is my thyroid had been going out,
Okay.
and progesterone levels were like not stable, and the doctors didn't catch it. So I lost a little boy. So, I mean,
Mm.
that's residual, right? That's hard.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Absolutely. Super
mhm,
hard. But
yeah.
I think Josh must have been
Yeah.
your little
Oh,
angel, your
yes.
savior.
He's totally.
Do you
It's
think that
interesting
he
to say
got
that.
you through the diagnosis?
Yeah. And it's crazy because we've shared the story together. Like,
Yeah.
I've had him there, but not told people like he's there. And then I'll say, and Josh, and I'll have him stand up, and everybody will be like, oh, because it's just amazing to even think that we both walked through that. And he is totally my angel. Like,
Yeah. Talk
he's a
about like
survivor too. He's a
not giving
survivor.
up. He's a
Mm-mm.
survivor because did he have any? Well, he's a survivor because
Mm-mm.
he wasn't supposed to make it.
Yeah, and he went through all of that with me. Like,
Exactly.
it's crazy. Yeah, so we have a pretty special bond.
I
Like,
bet.
I
I bet.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
another thing about like uncertainty. We all always were so afraid about uncertainty, but then the difference is had you made that choice to take the doctor's advice and terminate him, then you have that certainty. You know that
right,
in the end, okay, you're gonna
sacrifice
lose your
that,
baby
but
and sacrifice your son. But then if you go through it, you just never know what could happen. And
can you imagine? I can't imagine.
I don't think
I
anyone
can't.
would have been able to guess that this, we always jump to the worst case scenario and we always forget about the best case scenario. And
Right.
Josh being 20 years old now, living his absolute best life,
Yeah,
is the
he's
ultimate best case scenario and beyond. But we tend to never even go there and think that you, to me, are my
scared of
best
that.
case scenario,
Oh, I love it.
thinking
Thank
that,
you.
I too could, you know, be someday in the clear, no
And
treatment
I think you
22
will,
years
just
later.
only because of your positive attitude and all that you're doing, all the good that you're doing. I so believe in karma and the
Yeah,
good that you do for other people. And if you're focusing on others' needs, your negativity and things that you're going through, they're not going to take over.
you're right. You're absolutely right. Even recording this now, like 2 days before my scan, I could have easily been, on
Oh,
my couch,
yeah.
yeah, crying. But instead, I'm recording this with you and you're giving me so much
Oh,
hope
I'm
and
so glad.
excitement. So, do you
Yeah.
ever have those moments where you are in
Oh,
fear of
yeah.
it recurring? And if
Well,
so, like, does
I
that ever
think,
go down after
right.
as the years pass? Like, when does that hit you? When does fear ever hit you?
I I think for me, it's always that year checkup. Like,
Yeah.
the knee
Okay,
jerk.
so
It's
you
like,
still get seen once a year.
yeah, yeah.
Scan. Do
And
you do a
it's
scan?
with it was with my normal doctor, but they'll
Okay.
order like my scans, and I'll do
Ah,
my mammogram. But honestly, like, that's probably, you always have that. That's like PTSD, right?
of
It's like,
course.
it's just part of it, but it gets less and less and less and less and less, because I always
Amazing.
have to tell myself, if it was going to come back, especially young, aggressive, HER2. Luckily, I'm not BRCA, right? But like, yeah,
Yeah.
I have that, but you just have to really put it out of your mind. I kind of like, I would like to say I'm super stubborn. Like, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
cancer doesn't deserve that from me. So I'm
Exactly.
not even going to waste my thoughts on you, you know?
Amen.
I don't know, maybe that's selfish, but I'm like,
No,
no, you're
it's
not.
not.
You
And
don't
I feel like
deserve a
that's the
slot in my heart.
pattern. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like those who do defy the odds are often like the stubborn ones. Or
Yeah.
the ones I kind of see myself in you. I do
I
have
can
that
see you doing that.
attitude. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Do
And I
you?
and I remember I'd always be like, okay, well, and my kids have been so perfect and so beautiful and such a
Yes.
gift. Like I focused on that. And that's why I didn't share my story a ton. I mean, I did,
Yeah.
but I was so like, this is what this is where I'm supposed to be. And I honestly think the Lord was like, okay, Erin went through hell and back. I'm going to give her angels as her gift for like trotting through
Oh,
it. And seriously,
absolutely.
my kids are just, that's what pull you through,
Yeah,
you know?
they are beautiful. I
Mhm,
have
mhm.
seen their pictures.
You're so sweet.
So
Yeah.
I know you said that your sister's into holistic practices. Do you have any complementary therapies, alternative therapies? I know I would consider Zumba one because
Oh,
exercise is
totally.
a million
Is that a
percent.
therapy or is that an addiction?
Both, definitely
Both.
both. But is there
Um,
anything else you did that you felt like helped you on your 20-year journey?
I did like when they told me Josh wasn't going to survive. I
Mm,
did kind of get into, okay, I'm like I don't have amniotic fluid. He doesn't have kidneys, bladder. Like, okay, I started Googling, looking up what works that way or whatever. So I took like dandelion for the
yeah,
kidneys and
yeah.
I did that stuff then, but like post stuff, no. I mean, I hate to say that. I wish I had like a magic answer, but
No.
honestly, like I said, it was just all here, and the physical, and then
Yes.
finding what your like out is, what your strength is. And one, it was my kids, two, it was my faith, and three, it was finding that workout or that thing that like keeps you going. And I always have my fingers in new different things. Like
Yeah.
don't slow down, don't stop and let it overtake you. Like
You're
I'm
right.
always okay. I'm a flight attendant now. Oh, okay. I have a
Yeah.
marketing company. Like you just have to live,
With
right?
purpose, right? With
Yeah.
excitement, with
Oh, totally.
joy.
I love that.
Mhm.
What you guys are doing. Like that's
Mhm.
amazing. My next goal, I really want to get my story out there. If it's a book, if it's whatever it is, that's the next step, and you're helping me here too.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna
I
say, I
hope
hope
it's
this helps.
yeah, totally. So I just don't have a magic like I did this diet or this or that. Like it's just I did
Yeah.
the mind diet, the heart diet, the spirit diet, you just dig into where your strength is and do not let that cancer seep in there and darken it.
Amen.
So mhm.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because a lot of people do reach out to us and they want to mimic
Yeah,
exactly what we do, but in the end it's like we always say this, and I know it sounds redundant and repetitive and even cheesy, but you have to do what's right for you. And for
yeah,
some people, what makes them feel empowered and what gets them excited is adhering to a plant-based diet because
true.
they're animal
And that's what they
lovers,
should
and
do.
they
Yeah.
feel like they're helping the planet, and which they probably are, and it fills them with joy. But the same way
It's
you do Zumba, and Zumba fills
whatever
you
drives
with
you.
joy. Whatever drives you is
Yeah.
probably the number one. If they're looking for that recipe, it's whatever
Whatever
drives
kills you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Thank you
Aw,
so much for
you're
sharing your
so
story. I feel like I
welcome.
could keep you on here forever, but
Oh
I
my
did tell
gosh,
you I was
please.
only going to keep you for 30 minutes.
Well,
But
let's not let it be like just this though. I'll come up and visit you.
no.
I have flight
Yes.
benefits.
Oh my God, seriously. I was going to say I should come up and visit you in Utah, but
Calm
since
down.
you're
Yeah.
the flight attendant, you could just fly to me. But there's
Yeah.
so much me and Steph have in store. You were just talking about retreats, and our dream is to
Oh,
host
there's
Thriver
so
retreats and
much
stuff.
we could
So,
do.
exactly, I would love to be able to, have you come do some
Do it.
Zumba for our Thrivers.
I would love it. Would love it.
Before you go, I guess your one piece of advice you'd give a woman diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Like, and it's fresh, it's just happened.
Happened.
She's so confused. She's not living with it yet. She's really just newly diagnosed. What would you say? What would you do?
I probably what I did and what I'd say to do is kind of take a step back close out all the fuzz, all the whatever goes on in that whole process, and take just a moment to not listen to what everybody's saying, what the doctor's saying, whatever. Go inward, take a moment. If it's faith and praying, if it's meditating, if it's whatever it is, just take a moment and slow down the chaos that's going on, the fear, whatever it is, and then make a decision. Just in that moment, make a decision on what your outcome is going to be. I don't care if the outcome is not that. You make that decision right then and there, that that's going to be the outcome. And there's no other choice. There's no other, you will do whatever it takes to make that happen. Because I would have people in that 5 days before I went into surgery, and I didn't know how bad it was at that point, calling, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I had a brother that brother-in-law's his mom's that, oh, she passed away. Oh, you have to like block out, clean that out, because so many different factors. Like, what if I had believed all of that 20 years ago? I wouldn't be here. And I just remember sitting there going, don't feel sorry for me. Like, it sucks, but don't feel sorry for me. Like, I will not die from cancer. I will not die from it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm proclaiming that with you. I will not die from cancer.
I will not die.
I'm saying that right now with you.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So just take a moment and just like not the whole confusion and the fuzz going on, and keep that core like pin there the whole time. No matter, I remember like when I found out Josh was going to die, when I found out, that it was in my neck, when I found out each of these different steps, it's like, can you throw another like huge storm at me? But if you have that pin, that anchor, that like there, and there's no other choice, you face it. I mean, and that's your outcome is like whatever you choose in your heart and mind. We don't have control over everything, but you do have control over your spirit.
So you just have to make that decision.
Yeah.
You just decide. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to meet you in person soon. Yes, please. All right, guys. So for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning into Thriver Talks. Check out our website at thethriversguide.com. Steph and I are writing The Thriver's Guide. It's our book coming out in October. So just subscribe to our newsletter to be the first to know. And also, get notifications on our podcast. We launch an episode every Thursday. So do leave us a rating, subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. We are on every major platform, so we would love to have your support there. You can find Erin on Instagram mostly, right?
Yeah. So I don't have a Facebook. I have just Instagram. So find me.
What's your handle?
If I see, it's Ripsy or Erin Ripplinger. Yeah.
So that's at RIPP.
PP, 2 P's, RIPPZIE, or by my name, either way.
Yeah, we need to get your story out there. So do give her a follow. And we will see you guys next week on next episode. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you. Privilege.